Hello and welcome to the Reaper's Digest podcast. My name is
Hello.
Blake Ray.
And my name is Duke Ralston. And sitting here next to me is Author Neal Privett.
We're going to be talking about Neal's book tonight.
Before we get into that, what are you drinking?
Drinking.
Neal and I are having Seamstress's roast.
I've got the Tiger Burning Bright light roast.
Light roast. Good stuff. One of my favorites.
Drogo.
It's a good company.
It is good company. We met Barry at Chattacon a few years ago, and she gave me a free sample, and I don't think I've drunk much else since then.
Yeah. Once you get hooked on it, you know.
There's no substitute.
There's no gold.
Yeah. You know, it's not like you can go back to Folgers.
No.
Once you go Drogo, you never go back.
Yeah. That's one of their rejected mottos. Also, Drogo, put it in your mouth.
I like that one.
This is live, right?
We are live, yes.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Do you
Cool.
feel alive?
I feel live.
I feel alive.
Especially when you leaned up on me like that. I feel real
I
live.
was trying to get in the picture. The special effects. See the visible man. There he is. Where'd he go? There he is.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be talking about Neal's book, but specifically we're going to be talking about the mummies of Tara albay. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Tara
an
albay.
alien language. Tara albay?
Yeah, Tara albay. Kind of a Tatooine, Arabic, Ray Bradbury, Martian lingo, ancient, inspired, you know?
Yeah. A lot of precedent for that in the sci-fi genre.
Yep.
You know, reminded me of Dune a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You know what? I have not read Dune. I need to read Dune.
Yes.
You know, you need to listen to Dune. Reading it,
Oh, yeah?
you know, yeah, the audiobook makes it a little more palatable. It's
I remember trying to read it when I was young and had a difficult time getting through it.
Well, you know, it's kind of the sci-fi version of War and Peace.
yeah,
You know,
it is.
it's one of those mountains you got to climb if you're a sci-fi fan, and I definitely want to climb it.
Yeah, that and the Foundation trilogy, and I think the Foundation trilogy is a little more enjoyable.
Yeah, there's about 1 million books I want to read.
Oh, God,
I'm never gonna live long enough. I think I'll keep reading after I'm dead.
yeah.
I'm taking the books with me. I'll
That's
haunt
the dream,
library.
right?
I'll haunt Barnes and Noble. I'll be like the Phantom of Barnes and Noble. On Saturday night after it closes, my ghostly ass will be like floating around through the horror and sci-fi section,
Yeah,
and the philosophy section.
And the philosophy section.
Might even grab a copy of the Kama Sutra.
well, I hear you're a lot more flexible as a Spectre.
Well, I have been doing yoga.
There you go.
So we're going to do a summary of her albay.
Yeah, I think so. Neal, do you want to summarize the story for us? Maybe give us a little bit of your background?
Background of the story?
No, background of you.
Oh, my background.
Summarize the story and give us your background.
How about a summary of my background?
Okay, whatever.
That'll work.
Well, the Mummies of Tara albay. It's definitely, Ray Bradbury influenced. I kind of, big fan of his Martian stories. Dark They Were in Goldeneye, especially. The ancient civilizations on a colonized planet. So he did Mars. I'm in love with the moon. There's just something about the moon. I've said a lot of stories on the moon, and this is a story in about 3001 AD, and the Earth has colonized the moon, and they've got kind of a, silver sand, deserty, star lot all the time, 24/7 kind of place. And they discover some ancient tombs. There's a lost race of moon people that are no longer there. And you can kind of, sense them, their presence there. You kind of hear them on the wind out in the desert at night. And Robert Shane is one of the main character. He's a military guy, and he goes along. He's assigned to go along with this archaeological expedition to excavate this tomb. And they unlock this, ancient evil. It's kind of a pharaoh, a pharaonic kind of character. And I kind of base that on, of course, ancient Egypt and also the Aztecs. And, this is, you may not believe this, but there's an El Santo movie, El Santo, and not the Aztec mummy movies, but there's another mummy movie in color in the 60s. And that mummy kind of inspired it.
Mummies of Guantanamo.
No, not that one. It's I'll think of the title. Anyway, a lot of influences on that. Ray Bradbury, of course, and he ends up having to, the Pharaoh's Curse too is another influence, and and Arthur Conan Doyle's mummy stories. I mean, there's a lot of influences. But anyway, the Pharaoh comes back to life, and his spirit starts to inhabit people and to get revenge. And Shane has to fight his way out. There's an action-packed scene towards the end, where they're, on the road going into town, and the slaves of the pharaoh, the ancient moon pharaoh, these lizard things come out of the sand and start attacking. And it's a pulp fiction story. It's a romp. That's my intention anyway.
I would say that was well met.
Yep. Thank you.
Why don't you give us a little of your background, Neal?
My background. Well, I'm from Tennessee. Pretty much grew up on a farm. I can pinpoint, I've always loved horror movies and rock and roll, and I can pretty much pinpoint, when I really wanted to become a writer. I was in my 8th grade reading class, and we read Dark the Word and Golden Eyed and The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury. We read Poison by Roald Dahl. We read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. I did a Poe project that year. And it's just, Shirley Jackson, The Lottery, which like screwed everybody up.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to therapy for that story. But anyway, God, that's a great story, The Lottery.
It really is.
I wish I could write a story that good. Anyway, that something about, and Seki, The Open Window is another one. Mm-hmm. And there's just something about that year that was just really important that I just always point back to. Those stories just captivated me. And I don't know, it's affected the kind of stories I like and the kind of stories I want to tell. Studied history and cultural anthropology in college. I was an archaeologist for about a year and a half back in the 90s. Played harmonica in a band briefly. Had a lot of bad relationships. Went through a divorce.
Yeah, you mentioned playing harmonica. God, I don't know where to go. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said anything about the bad relationships. Should I mention bad relationships?
Sure.
Women love me. It's just. I don't give the impression that women don't love me because they do.
Gotcha.
Anyway, next question.
So
was I a wife? I do yoga.
Yeah.
I have my dad has cows. I have dogs. I love looking at the stars. I love quiche. I'm a total He-Man. I almost got mauled by a grizzly in Alaska and I almost died on Kilimanjaro. But I'm a real He-Man, but I love quiche and I have feelings. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a man having feelings. I just want to get that out there. Nothing wrong.
It sounds like you love quiche.
I love quiche. I do. I love quiche.
I'm not an egg guy, so it's lost on me.
Yeah,
it's lost on me. So usually at this point we would take the time to kind of dissect and analyze. But since you're here, we can check our analysis against what your intentions were, which I think is an interesting opportunity that you don't usually get. We don't get to ask Shirley Jackson what she meant usually.
No.
Well, I'm not Shirley Jackson, but I'm like a false Shirley Jackson, maybe, or a pseudo Shirley Jackson. I'm kind of like, I don't know, Shirley Jackson's third cousin, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah,
at least you're in the mix,
I'm like the mailman that delivered Shirley Jackson's mail on the day that the real mailman called in sick. That's me.
There you go. But
one of the things that I love about this story, and I kind of picked this story. I love the reference to Egyptian to the mummy movies, the whole Egyptian thing set on the moon. But I love the whole 1950s feel of the story. By the 60s and 70s, the thing that I kind of seized on, they take a pill to breathe. That's very 1950s.
Yeah.
Everything's supposed to come from a pill. You're going to get all your food from a pill. Whereas in the 60s and 70s, they would have built a space dome and all this kind of crap. I like the pill,
Yeah.
So I love that 1950s feel. And I think the idea of setting it on the moon in the 1950s, I think that's a very 1950s thing you could do.
Well, sci-fi and, Destination Moon and, a lot, that was a big deal in the 50s, flying saucers.
Yes.
And space travel, even though we hadn't technically been to outer space yet, we didn't, I guess we got a satellite up in the late 50s.
The late 50s, yeah.
But, that's the cool thing about the 50s. I'm really influenced by the 50s. I mean, it was my parents' generation. And it just seems like, I'm in the 80s, listening to Hank Williams and the Stray Cats and the rockabilly thing was always huge with me. And, 1950s pre-code horror comics. I was a maniac for those on, the reprints when I was a kid. And I even got my hands on a few original Marvel ones, in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
That and, the American International flicks, Roger Corman flicks. I mean, it's just the 50s was just Lux Interior, the Cramps. I think he said the 1950s were like the high point of Western civilization.
I could.
So I mean, you mentioned the 50s. I think the 50s is in the background of a lot of what I write. It's I can't really get away from it.
Well, I thought it was
James Dean. James Dean was my hero when I was a kid, and it's like it's just in the back of my mind wherever, Yeah.
Well, I thought it was interesting because we take this very 50s idealistic view of the world, and because science was, as we've discussed before, very idealized in the 50s. Yeah. But then you have this ancient evil. We shouldn't be here, which is a much more 70s idea, I think, or Great Depression, 20s lost generation idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'll tell you something else that goes along with that, the way it ended.
Yeah.
The fact that he walks in and the Pharaoh has possessed his commanding officer. You don't get that in 50s horror. The 50s, the good guy always wins.
Well, that is true. But that definitely, the Pharaoh's Curse was definitely an influence in that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, I was a fan of that film. And that was just, I don't know that any other film or story ever did that, where the Pharaoh's spirit just leapfrogs, and gets people like they're going to drink their blood and kill them. And you guys have seen the Pharaoh's Curse, right?
I have.
It's been a long time.
It's 57. God, I love that flick. It's like an EC comic, jacked up on moonshine. It's definitely 50s. But anyway.
I remember it being very very out there for the era.
Oh, it is.
It's out there.
The 50s were weird. It's like, God, Invasion of the Saucer Man, Teenage Werewolf, Teenage Frankenstein, From Hell It Came. You know, I mean, it's just the 50s were weird.
You have this Eisenhower veneer that's laid over things that are going on. We talked about Plan 9 from Outer Space a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, you got Ike Eisenhower and Ed Wood thriving at the same time.
I don't know that Ed Wood really thrived in the 50s, but he did his work in the 50s. He did his work, yeah. He persevered.
Yeah, he was. Well, I think we'll get your opinion on Ed Wood a little bit later once we're done talking about this specific story. But you know, I have a lot to say about him still. We did a whole episode, and I still haven't talked it out. Yeah. Still haven't figured out if I love or hate him, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There was a lot in here. It was quite the interesting little pastiche of other genres, you know? Like, I thought Shane, you know, was kind of the typical Western sheriff.
Yeah.
In a little desert town on the moon.
Definitely an influence on me too. You know, I mean, I don't think you can be an American and not be influenced. But it's the West is like our myth. It's like our mythology.
Yeah. Man, I'm named Duke.
Yeah, yeah. The showdown, man. It's like, you know, it's you can't get away from.
Can't get away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm in a cowpunk band. You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So. You know, I like that idea of him as the good, upstanding sheriff coming into, you know, what is essentially just a really peaceful world, you know, and you still have a military presence because it's America. You know, you're going to have a military presence.
But at the beginning of the story, you kind of get the feeling that it's almost superfluous. You know. And then by the end, boy, it's not superfluous anymore.
No, not at all. But, so what do you think? I mean, we talked about your influences for the story. What was your intention with the story? What was the theme you had? Like, what was the grain that started it all?
Well,
was it just the desire to write a moon story, or?
It was published in an anthology. I wrote it originally for an anthology for Pro Se Productions. I'm in several of their anthologies, and in How to Make a Monster, the collection is reprinted. My intention is to write a good story, to entertain. My stories kind of fall into place as I write them. I wanted to. You know, develop Shane, make a good character. I wanted it to make it scary. I didn't really have any major, you know, cause in mind or theme in mind, other than, which makes a good pulp sci-fi horror idea, is, you know, we don't belong here. We're in an alien land, and we should go back home. And I mean, that plays over in a ton of mummy movies, sci-fi, you name it. And but you know, just writing a good story, an entertaining pulp story. That was my intention.
You know, that sense of not belonging, I think that can translate to a lot of folks that are fans of pulp and right pulp. You know, we've all kind of not fit into the culture that we're in, and I think we all can kind of feel for Shane. You know, I kind of had that feeling too.
Kind of out of time, you know, out of time and place. Yeah. I mean, definitely Shane definitely's you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? He's the kind of the all-American male, the Clint Eastwood, the John Wayne, the Western hero top. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I think, you know, that othering of landscape and the othering of the protagonist is important to the pulp story.
Yeah.
In general.
Well, I've heard that, you know, one day they're talking about maybe colonizing Mars, and
Yeah.
it's maybe some kind of reality.
Yeah, I just don't think that's a good idea at all.
I don't either.
I don't either. I think I've heard that like you just basically get on a ship, and if they ever do it, you're not coming back home. Yeah.
No.
And I don't know. That's pretty wild. What's going to happen when you get there? And I guess probably part of that figured into the story too. And what would it be like to be on another sphere, another planet, the moon in this instance? Who was there millennia before you? And what if you're not wanted? What if you're not dealing with earthly, terrestrial kind of rules here? And are there ghosts on other planets? I mean, are they the same kind of ghosts? I mean, ancient civilizations, are they still there? The remnants and the memory. I don't know. It's pretty deep.
Yeah, there's something Lovecraftian about that idea that I thought you touched on and played with, but without getting into the maudlinness of a lot of Lovecraftian fiction.
Well, Lovecraft's definitely an influence. I don't know that I really had him in mind so much in that story, but he's definitely, I see what you're saying. And you're right.
Yeah, finding the ancient writing.
It's definitely Lovecraftian in a way.
Yeah. It reminded me of Trapped with the Pharaoh, the one he wrote with Houdini.
I hadn't read that.
It's good when he ghost wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, Houdini put his name on it.
Yeah. So
that'd be an
Prison with the Pharaohs, I believe, is what it was called.
Yeah. Well, Egyptology was a big topic in the 1900s, late 1800s. It was the rage. It was hit.
People were snorting lines of mummy.
Yeah. Well, they would bring mummies. How they got, you could actually go into ancient Egypt and bring out a mummy.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to do that today. You got like a wrapped up mummy on the airplane with you, or put it in storage and baggage.
Would you have to buy it its own seat, you think?
Say again?
Would you have to buy another ticket, you think?
I don't know. I mean, you get one carry-on, don't you?
Yeah. But it's got to fit the overhead.
You probably fold it in half and put it in a backpack.
Yeah. Like a laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.